Welcome to Cleethorpes. It's 20 to 5-ish. Whoa, he's definitely going for us. Whoa. What is the problem with this pig? Seagull. I've never had that happen before. Still not finished. Well, what do you think to that, Angus? Angus was not happy when I woke him up this morning, I have to say. It did cross my mind as to whether it was worth doing this walk or not. So we're going to go on a little tour of Cleethorpes, do a little bit of history. It's an interesting place, Cleethorpes, because it's at the end of the train line, end of the motorway. It's not a place that you can just pass through like Leeds or York or somewhere like that. You have to be very intentional to come here. And that feeds into history a lot, because it only really picked up because of the railway in the 1860s. But of course the history goes back much further than that, right back to the 6th century, with none other than the legend of Grimm himself, who is said to have rescued Havelock from where I do not know. Who Havelock is, I do not know. Probably should, but that's a legend. So the Victorians would flock to this seaside town in the droves once railway was established. But of course there's a huge heritage of fishing, which since the 90s has been in massive decline. It is still surviving, the fishing industry, but not what it once was. Poor hedgehog. Intrigued by that, Gus. I don't know what was happening with that seagull. I've never heard that happen to me before. He was swooping down upon us multiple times. Angus clocked it. He clocked it. I clocked it. Yeah, he just kept swooping down, maybe nesting or something. Not low enough to actually peck, but threatening to do so. Just saw someone rollerblading at 4 or 5 in the morning, as you do. How the sun starts to peek through the trees. On the line, almost like sunbathing. These were originally in wood. They're famous for Willesby Woods, which is where we are now. Willesby Woods, first stop on the trail. Fine. Commemoration for the officers and the men of the Carpathian Lancers Regiment who fought for freedom from 1940 were based at Willesby Park between 1945 and 1947. You know, this is my hometown and I come here all the time with Angus when I'm in the area. Look at that. And I've never come up to this thing. There's a bit of a right up there. Look at it. I believe that's pronounced Wojtek. Soldier bear. Polish soldier bear. So World War I, all of this space was used as a military training ground. Imagine it covered with soldiers training, not knowing what's coming next. And And then, World War II, it was used as a prisoner of war camp for Italian soldiers. And then, when the war ended, that's when the Carpathian Lancers came here and they used it as a base because they couldn't get back to Poland, or they decided to stay in the local community, as far as I can tell. Where's your ball? But it is interesting. So easy to walk through places that you know quite well. Past those signs, there's another one here. And not take it in. This one I have actually read before, but not taking it in. Again, about the Carpathian Lancers. We are now standing in the foundations of several wartime accommodation huts, many of which filled Willesby Woods during a time as its home for the Carpathian Lancers. They wanted to return home, a lot of the soldiers. That, however, was not to be. Poland remained military occupied and politically controlled by the Soviet Union. And Polish forces in the West became regarded as Western enemies as the Iron Curtain descended across Europe. Many Poles had experienced Soviet incarceration in the Siberian gulags and had no wish, despite deep yearnings for their homeland and loved ones, to return to a country whose suffering beneath the swastika had been replaced with that of the Red Star. And here we have some of the Lancers. You woken up now, Gus? He's a very active fella, but he don't really like getting up early. I believe this is what you call a sunrise. Okay. So we're gonna have coffee. Memory from friends and family of Vivian Hall, committee member of Friends of Willesby Woods. Please sit, rest and enjoy. Where's your ball, Angus? Good boy. Three shots in here. We'll go. Yeah, Angus. So apparently there was a fella called Fred Parks who was a local businessman who owned Willesby Woods back in the 50s. And he decided to donate it to the people of Grimsby. Apparently. Why would he do that? Was it a gesture of goodwill? Were there other motives at play? Or was there something more? But yes, in 1951, I believe it was, Fred Parks, can you believe it? Fred Parks, he owns a park, and he donated it to Grimsby. And here we are. Angus, ready? Angus, ready? Ready. Don't always let me get his ball. Something that we are working on. Alright, let's go. Angus. Angus. Good boy. So this is going to take us through and out. Really nice actually once you get going, because you never want to go. You know, oh, I'm so close to thinking, oh, it's mostly on the road, what's the point? You know, the dog's not getting up. You start to debate in your head, Obviously it wouldn't be realistic to do this every day if you're working. But once you're up and the sun comes up and then you have a little coffee, it's the real simple things that bring you a bit of joy, especially in the summer months. I always think my two favourite months are June and December. I prefer winter, to be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of the high temperatures of summer. I do enjoy a light morning and being able to get up at 4 and it's light, especially on a Sunday. Normally on a Sunday you get a bit of a Sunday energy, but not really sensing that too much today. Feels a bit like a normal day, but maybe that will come. Trapped. What's going on like this? You trapped. Here we go. I think it's this way. Growing up, I remember coming here with the beavers or the scouts, and we were doing tracking. We were putting out some tracks. And my friends and I thought it'd be a good idea to change the direction of the tracks. We found it really funny and they really had a go at us. Somebody could have died. Yeah, funny. Anyway, I didn't actually know you could get through this way. Been walking here many times. It's going to link me back onto the road and then through. So you've found the road then. So back on your lead. Angus, I think what we'll do is get on our lead now and then go through. Hello? 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 Good boy, come on in. This is where we've come out. I've never been down here. Fishing boats. Well, I thought we were going to be on the road, but no. We can walk along there. Off lead. Fantastic. Come on in. Right, Angus. We're going to go off our lead again now. Okay, Angus, come here. Right then, off we go. Off you trot. Yeah, I know. We've not been here before, have we? Yeah, but you're not having your ball because I'm not sure when we have to go on the lead again. I think Angus views his ball as the one ring to rule them all. It's very addictive. And then when you've got it, it's a burden. You see, you can't relax. Sometimes I feel like when I take the ball off him, he's secretly happy to be relinquished from the burden of having to carry that ball around. Who'd have thought it? I've never been here. Our boots on this field. Probably one today, to be honest. You forget when it's like this that it's only just past 5. See, there's this curious thing about Angus. He's really not a very barky dog, but if he sees something he's not sure about. So there's some cones, which he's not seen before. And so he's going to do this until he realises that we're okay. Hey, not listening. So funny, man. He's nearly 2, but he still finds stuff that bit of a sniff, and then we're all good. Right, back on our lead in a minute. What a lovely morning. Right, so now we're going to do a whistle recall practice. I don't have any treats, but good boy. Right, so we're back on the road. It's a bit later than I thought. It's actually 10 to 6. I've been walking about an hour and 15 and we've got roughly 7 kilometres to go. I have a personal training client online at 8:30, so I'll have to make sure I'm back for that. We should be alright. But here we are now, coming to the famous Pennell's Garden Centre of Cleethorpes. You can have a cafe in here if you want. You can look at the overpriced garden products. Well, that's not fair, to be honest. I don't know if it's overpriced. It's not where I would go for me garden stuff, but a lot of people do. My generation, not as into gardening, right? Interesting one. Pennell's Garden Centre, eh, Angus? What do you think to that one? I think you will probably be allowed in there, to be fair. Can go in most garden centres. He's got some of those things on his ears. He's a good boy. So yeah, my generation, we're not as good at gardening. I like to do gardening, to be honest, but I can't say I'm too knowledgeable about this plant or that plant. I know my begonia from my geranium, from my Primula sinensis. No, I'm just joking about that. I don't actually know what that is. Anyway, what I'm saying is, if I ask my gran, oh, what tree is that? Or what shall I do with this or that plant? Or what hedge is that? She would know. They would know, both of them. Still alive, actually, which is good. What bird is that? That is a crow. Blackbird. Oh, I can hear a squirrel in there somewhere. Yeah, so my gran would know that. My nan would know that. I and my generation would struggle in general. What does that tell you? Well, I think it tells us that we are more and more disconnected from nature. Because really, you know, we want to know these things. It's easier now than it was ever. We can take a picture, put it in ChatGPT, it will tell us exactly what it is, but yet we still don't know. Why is that? Whereas they would have to learn from their parents, grandparents. That's probably how they did it. Or look in a book or something. But it's probably more learned by doing, more learned from necessity. You know, my nan in particular, child of the war, they had livestock which they curated and consumed, and they also grew their own produce. My nan used to be very active in the garden until she became more and more immobile, shall we say. So it's a case of just learning by doing. Nowadays, things are so convenient, and we don't have the necessity to do that. But it makes us more and more disconnected, and I'll never forget watching the documentary My Octopus Teacher. It was a real eye-opener for me, to be honest, because one thing that he said in that, I really recommend to go and watch that. One thing that he said was, you know, it doesn't matter where you live, you don't have to live on safari, you don't have to live in Antarctica, you don't have to live in a national park to observe nature. And that nature is very much all around us, and even if you've got a little postage stamp of land or park, or even if it's very urban, you know, if you look closely enough, you'll be able to observe changes through the seasons. And as the seasons progress, you'll notice more and more, and certainly living on a boat, moving from a flat to a boat, you know, flat where you're 6 floors up, yeah, you can go to the park, but you're a bit more disconnected, whereas on the boat, as soon as you come out, you're in the nature. You do start to notice these subtle changes. And another thing he said is, you know, you go from being ignorant to aware, or something along those lines, in a sense of, there's so much that we're looking at now, like I was saying about the hedges and that, all these different types of hedges and trees and plants. Don't know the name of. Look a bit deeper, and all of a sudden you start to become more conscious. And often you can think of becoming more conscious as quite a woo-woo, you know, or you need to do meditation or whatever, but actually just becoming more knowledgeable and aware and conscious changes your perception on the world, doesn't it? And I think nature's a great way to do that, and it's very grounding, very restorative. I was just about to say that's Tesco in Cleethorpes, and I was thinking, it's really, really boring. What the hell has he got? In his gullet, a flipping juice box. He's got a flipping juice box. I've never seen that before. He's taking it up there. He's got a juice box, Angus. I've got a mallard duck. And here. Oh. Again, I had no idea you could walk this way. We have a mallard duck that comes to see us on the boat, and we've nicknamed her Priscilla. She used to come with another fella, but the fellas that she comes with tend to change, shall we say. I don't know if they die or if she's just that way inclined, but well, let me tell you about Priscilla. She likes to eat. She actually knocks on the window with her beak, and she's become dependent on us for food. And she knocks and looks, and she sits and stares. She very much reminds me of Angus. And of course, Angus gets very jealous, and he will become upset when we feed Priscilla, and desires the food for himself. Even if we give her some oats, he will then gobble the oats, which he would never normally do. He's quite happy this morning because, well, why wouldn't you be? But yeah, I didn't know about this trap, not being down here. He loves new places and smells. He will hound me for a ball if he's bored, but there's some cows there. Oh dear, he's seen them. You don't normally have to be careful of livestock around these parts. It's more when we're in Yorkshire. But I'm very, very cautious of, it'll be all right there because there's some space, but you can't be too careful. There's another dog down there. Well, great morning. Deer, look at that. Deer in Cleethorpes, who'd have thought it? Who'd have thought that? Right, where's he gone? Good boy. So literally the road is here, and I've seen, you call a herd of deer? Pack of deer? No, herd of deer. I don't know. Anyway, that was interesting. The cows. They're still there. Oh my golly. Can you see them? Have you seen them? Have you seen them there? Don't chase them. Angus. 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 Nope. You know what I often think about when you're deciding to do something is kind of like a framework that I use. If it's something that you know pretty well what's going to happen versus something new. I'll give you an example. There was a reunion for my cohort last year, and I wasn't sure whether to go because I'd have to go to London and back in a day. But then I realised I was working on a shower, and I know what's going to happen with that versus the reunion. I didn't, so I decided to go on the reunion. Same with this walk really. I was thinking, oh God, can't be doing with it. It's not going to be very good. It's going to be on the road. But then I was like, you know what? I planned to go. I'm going to go, and I'm so pleased that I did. So this is all new. Completely new experience before 8 AM. Hello, baby deer, I think. See if he figures out where I've gone. Generally don't go too far. I feel like I'm bloody on safari here. Look at, ooh. They remind me of kangaroos for some reason. Have you seen them, Angus? A little bit cautious. I think that. Ooh, off they go. Right, where's he gone? He won't be far. Come on. Good boy. Wonder if someone's wild camping in that. Mike Slate Way. Who is Mike Slate? Mike Slate Way. So this leads on to Country Park. So we're not going that way. We're going, yes, yes, good boy. Country Park was built in the 80s. And it's got a nice lake, that's the pinnacle of it, where Angus loves to chase balls. All man-made. There used to be farmland. Mike Slate Way. Who is Mike? So it turns out that Mike Slate was a local ecologist. Or maybe he is. He had a lot to do with the building of Country Park back in the day. So this is Country Park. Well, I think that's a golf course. Anyway, big up to Mike Slate. I often talk about quiet and silence and oh, there's a swan. Hello. And how you can only really hear that when you're, you know, halfway up a big peak in the middle of the Dales or Himalayas or whatever. But I'm walking through Cleethorpes now. I can't hear a thing. It's about 6:30. This is Meridian Point that you can see there in Cleethorpes. Now I didn't know this, I've just looked it up. Whether it's true or not is another question, but the Meridian Point marks the meridian line which runs through Greenwich through to the North Pole and is used to measure longitude, and it passes through this point to distinguish between east and west. So apparently At this point we're at 0 degrees longitude. I don't really understand it. Feeling a bit thick, to be honest. Just trying to look it up now, but meridian point, Cleethorpes. Maybe someone can explain it better than me. Here's the country park golf club. This is the smallest pub in the world. Not the outside bit, there's a signal box, which really you only get the drinks from, but apparently it's the smallest pub in the world. I've been there once. Once did a challenge, which was to run for 24 hours. It ended up being like a 24-hour hobble. And this was a turning point, and I'd run through here. It's etched in my mind, as you can imagine. All right, my favourite ships. Oh. Oil tanker. So this is the Humber estuary. And I've just seen another sign. It looks very weathered. Literally can't read. I wonder what it used to say. That's a shame. I remember coming here as a child. My dad cycling with us and stopping here. It just felt like so far at the time, but in reality it's like 1.5 miles, 2 miles. So here we are, the River Humber, which is not actually a river, it's an estuary. Interesting places. It's a bit like a motorway for birds as they're migrating. Birds coming from anywhere from Siberia, Scandinavian countries. They tend to stop off here. There's a P&O ferry, and that will go to Hull. Docking Hull, and that one goes back and forth from Amsterdam to Hull, like a bus route. But you see ships coming along here all the time. I find it absolutely fascinating, but it's a very challenging body of water. Apparently it requires a very, what's the word? It requires a significant qualification or ticket for the captain or skipper to navigate ship through here. And obviously you need a pilot as well. I once took a cruise from Hull, which came, it didn't come, well actually it did come past Cleethorpes, but it was quite far out, and it went to the fjords, and I just found that utterly fascinating to go through that area on a cruise ship, a very small one, the Ocean Countess, no longer with us. There was a fire. I actually love those smaller ships. I was just thinking, it was the Vikings that originally founded Grimsby, Cleethorpes area back in the 6th century, I believe it was. Famous tale of Grim, I spoke about earlier, who was a Danish Viking. But imagine turning up here and being greeted by the Humber, and you're on a flipping wooden boat. I mean, it does make you wonder about the information that they had. Because the Polynesians as well, don't get me started on the Polynesians and their navigation and how they would use the stars and all that kind of thing, but a lot of it we don't really understand how they did it. But that was in the South Pacific. This is the Humber, Grimsby Cleethorpes. But doesn't it look wonderful, all those ships coming down at this early hour on a Sunday, going I know not where, but it's a beautiful day for it. And Angus is happy, very happy, of course. I bet he's happy he got up now, because he wasn't to begin with. So I was just looking up, and one challenge about navigating the Humber is the sandbanks. They move, so you can have a chart, and as far as I understand it, the sandbanks stay fixed. Well, don't quote me on it, I'm not a mariner. Anyway, they move on the Humber all the time, so that's a big challenge. And another fact I looked up was in 1981, when the Humber Bridge was constructed further that way. It was the longest in the world, or in the country. I don't know. Anyway. Morning. Morning. Look, use that. Wash your feet. Seen some activity this morning with guy rollerblading. Everyone's in very good spirits. You're not allowed to walk Good Friday, September. A shame because there's no one on there. You could say, oh, we'll be fine. They are pretty hot on it, to be honest. I don't know about this time. Probably would get away with it now, but I'm not going to. Okay. So behind me is Ross Castle, made to look very ancient, but it was in fact built in 1885. It was built by the rail company, and it's named after a man called Edward Ross, who was secretary of the rail company. And what they wanted to do is make it look, this place look a bit more interesting than it actually was, I suppose. So it's a folly. Supposedly an ancient ruin, built in 1885. The irony, of course, is that now that's actually quite long ago, and in America they would think, oh my god, let's open a museum. But here, you know, you can walk past a monastery from the 12th century and really not make too much of it. But anyway, that's Ross Castle. I didn't actually know that, I just looked it all up. I knew it was Ross Castle, I didn't know that Edward Ross was the fellow they named it after. Interesting fact, my grandmother's dog jumped off that and died, I think. You see behind me a typical Cleethorpian donut joint where you can get donuts, and that's will have your taste buds buzzing and your arteries clogging. Here's a famous Cleethorpes pier. Doing many things back in the day, full of concerts, theatres, amusements. It used to be 3 times longer than that, would you believe? Built in 1873 originally, and nearly destroyed by the sea many times. Now it's a fish and chip shop. I've been in there one day when it was a nightclub. Yeah, before your time, Angus. This is Dolphin Gardens. There's plans in the 90s to pave it over, make it a car park. But I thought to keep it open. I've never actually been in here, but there's some people in there now, and it's not even 8 o'clock. So, well, it must be nice. Well, that concludes the tour of Cleethorpes for now. But I'm sure you can see that there's actually some very nice spots in Cleethorpes. So don't let people be snooty about Cleethorpes, and I would definitely not underestimate this walk. I wasn't sure what to make of it, but it turned out to be fabulous. I'm serving up his breakfast, but he's just not even bothered. And this is what I love about the early walk. So it's now 7:30, and he's going to be having a nice long sleep now and not bothering me, hustling. I guess breakfast. My breakfast. Breakfast. Good boy. Yes.